Hi, welcome to the Tournament Center. I'm Zac Hill here with Christian Calcano. Yep. Chris, tell us what you're playing today.
I'm playing Esper Control today.
Cool.
Same deck I played 2 weeks ago at Star City Games Open. I did pretty well with it. I went top forward, and since then I changed it around a bit, and I like where I'm at right now.
And without getting into like the individual cards, we'll go through those later. If you could just give kind of like the zoom out strategy of the Esper Control deck. What's that deck trying to do?
Sure. I mean, Esper Control deck basically is a deck that has a lot of removal spells. It's got some powerful planeswalkers like Ashiok, Elspeth, Jace, and basically just wants to stabilize, get to the late game, cast a big Sphinx Revelation, and then finish them off with, Elspeth or Ashiok even.
Sure.
Yeah, that's it.
Cool. Yeah, it's a strategy that's been good basically for as long as Sphinx's Revelation has been legal.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
let's take a look actually at some of the cards that are in that deck. Now, one of the most important things to do is kind of to stabilize early, and really a question to answer is why you want to play blue-white at all. Some of the key cards are Supreme Verdict, which you got 4 copies of, Detention Sphere 4 copies, and 3 copies of Sphinx's Revelation. These are some of your only 4s in the deck. Why are these cards so important?
Well, Verdict obviously crucial against all the aggro decks. Like you need a Wrath on turn 4 against those decks. And Detention Sphere, it's more so like the same thing, except that against like the mid-range decks, like Naya for instance, like killing a Domri is just brutal. Like you need to get rid of Domri.
Domri Raid, the Planeswalker,
yes.
red-green, yeah.
And also it's a good card for the mirror match because the matches come down to the Planeswalkers. So it gets rid of their Jace, their Ashoks, their Elspeths. So yeah, it's pretty good there too.
And why only 3 Sphinx's Revelation when it's such an important card?
Yes, it's important, but basically you only really need to cast 1 Revelation to pretty much get ahead in the game. And having 4 is just too excessive. Okay. Because you can get, quote unquote, like flooded on them like early on in the game, and against like aggro strategies, it's just not where you want to be. So that's why there's only 3. And
let's actually talk about how you deal with some of those aggro strategies. We've seen Supreme Verdict, we've seen Detention Sphere. But you were telling me you actually had a pretty good aggro matchup. If we can look at the next slide and see exactly why that is. I mean, 3 copies of Azorius Charm, 2 Far and Away, 2 Doomblade, 2 Heroes Downfall. Yeah. Sounds like killing creatures is really important to you. Is this why you played black? Or tell us how we got here.
Yeah, well, black gives me better removal.
Oh, yeah?
Like Far Away is just very, very good. It gets rid of cards like Obzadab, Blood Baron that are problems in mid-range. And against aggro, I can just far a creature to like just stabilize and save time to cast a Verdict later in the game. And Doomblade and Downfall, they're spot removals, but Downfall obviously serves a purpose in all matchups because it can hit Planeswalkers as well.
Now, we see in a lot of decks 4 Azorius Charms because you can cycle it early. Why are you only playing 3 of those?
The reason I'm only playing 3 is because I feel it's only very good against aggro, and against mid-range and control it gets a lot worse.
Sure.
Against control, I pretty much always side them out. Since all they're doing is cycling, and against mid-range decks, some of those decks I don't want to be Azorius Charming them, like the decks with Domri Raid, like I said earlier, and
yeah, that's awkward.
Those other mid-range decks have like Blood Baron, which is just a stone blank. So that's why there's only 3.
Cool. Okay, so one of the things you were talking about that made this deck really good is its Planeswalkers. You actually have a lot of those. Let's take a look at which ones Chris is playing right here. You see 4 Jaces, 3 Ashiok, and 2 Elspeth Sun's Champion, which isn't in all of these decks. Now, let's just take this from the beginning. Jace Architect of Thought, 4 copies of this card. Why is he so good?
It's the best card in the format.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really? That's a bold claim.
You just want Jace in every matchup as well. Yeah? So, I mean, he just does it all. Like, he stops aggro decks, he gives you card advantage. If he ever gets to 8, like in a control mirror, the game's over. So, yeah, I mean, you can't ask for more, really.
Basically, he's good in every matchup.
Absolutely.
And he gains you card advantage. Do you find yourself mostly just like -2, or do you build him up, or does it just really
It all depends. Against aggro, he's always like slap, +1. And against control decks, also -2 is usually the first thing you do, and then you tick him up and -2, get more card advantage. But,
now, Ashiok is a card that when the set came out, people were kind of making fun of, saying it wasn't real good.
That. I may have been one of those people, but then I quickly realized like 10 minutes later that I was just dumb.
And why is he good? Why is he very good?
I mean, this card is, it's not a card that I really want against like the mono red aggro deck, but against the other aggressive decks, it's also very good. It's good against mid-range, it's good against control. I mean, when you +2 this guy, they gotta deal with it.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like against certain, like especially the decks that are playing like Voice and Fleece mainline, a Smiter. I mean, when you +2 this guy, you can get, if you hit like Voice or Lion or any of those things, it's just a free creature for no reason.
And now, Elspeth, it's 6. A lot of people have Aetherling in this slot. Why is Elspeth better than Aetherling?
Well, the reason is that Aetherling is just not very good against aggro.
Sure.
It's just a card that you never want to draw.
Okay.
And against the Naya mid-range deck, it's not very good, but it's good against the other ones. So yeah, Elspeth really, it's a card that can take over the game. And it took me a while to come around on that one, but I'm happy I have it.
Cool. All right, let's round out the main deck real quick. Taking a look at these next slide. You got a couple of counterspells. You got 2 Dissolve, 1 Syncopate.
Yeah.
I mean, we could go into the numbers, talk about it all day, but really a lot of people play a lot more counter than this. Why are you only playing 3 counterspells?
I mean, I'm just scared of aggressive decks, and they're just not that good against them. And against the mirror, I can side into more counterspells if I need. So I figured that I wanted to have. I still need a counterspells main deck, but I just didn't want to pack 6 or 5 like I did before, so that's why I cut down on them.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a look at the mana base, because that's actually something that a lot of the times people will criticize about this deck. You've got the Ravnica dual lands, it makes sense. Of course you're going to play all 12 of those.
For sure, yeah.
But what I want to look at actually are the temples, which are what we're going to take a look at next. You are playing, I believe, 3 Temple of Deceit, 3 Temple of Silence, and then you were saying you had 9 whole basics. A lot of people aren't playing this deck because they say the mana is bad. What do you say to that?
I mean, the mana is the weakest part of the deck.
Oh, yeah?
So that's why I ended up upping the basic land count. I used to play as low as 7, and I fluctuated, but I came to the conclusion that I need to be on at least 9 because having your lands come into play on tap is just so important. Like sometimes you just can't afford to take 2 off a land, or you can't have, you know, a temple come into play or something. So yeah, basics are, I think, what makes this deck better. And
I mean, how, aside from just reading the card, how does a temple compare to a Ravnica Guildgate?
I mean, they're very different. I mean, the Ravnica Guildgate, the land. Sorry, wait, you mean the Ravnica Shocks, right?
No. I like, you know, is it just like, oh, it's a come into play tap down with a little bit of upside, or does it change the way that your deck plays?
No, it changes everything.
Really?
I mean, Scry is just, these lands are very, very powerful. Like, I know early on people thought they were bad or unplayable or anything, but they let you kind of like shape the game in a sense, just knowing what you want to draw and putting cards you don't want on the bottom. They're just amazing. You know?
Cool. Okay, let's take a look at your sideboard really quick. We've got kind of what looks like an anti-control package. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You've got 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Duress, 2 Negate, 1 Aetherling. I guess, A, do you bring all these in control matchups? And B, are there any times you like bring in Thoughtseize but not Duress?
Against control matchups, I always bring these in.
Okay.
Against some mid-range decks, I bring in Thoughtseize, but usually not.
Oh, yeah?
I actually just play against junk mid-range now, and I didn't bring the Thoughtseizes in. So, but they're mostly just for control.
You basically just take out removal spells and add these?
Yeah, take out some of the Wrath, some removal spells, Azorius Charms.
Sure.
And they just come in with the discard and the Aetherling. And
cool.
Yeah.
And then there's finally the stuff that isn't for control matchups, or at least is for less typical ones. You got Glare of Heresy, Ratchet Bomb, Blood Baron of Vizkopa, and the final copy of Far and Away. Now it seems like each of these kind of do different things. Walk us through what these are doing in your sideboard.
Well, Glare is for the wide aggressive decks and the junk mid-range decks and the Naya decks. And it actually, it comes in against control as well.
Because Detention Sphere?
Detention Sphere, Elspeth, and cards like that. So that's why that always comes in. And Blood Baron, sometimes I bring it in against control as well. If I feel like they side out all their removal spells, then it's really going to be really hard for them to kill that, guys.
Totally. And finally, the Ratchet Bomb and the Far Away?
Yeah, Ratchet Bomb is mostly just for the aggressive decks, and the Naya mid-range decks that can get pretty aggressive because they have a lot of threats. And the Far Away is just for the same thing, like aggro and mid-range. Yeah, that's it.
All right, this is Christian Calcano here with Esper Control. Again, we're talking about the pillars of the format. You're going to see a lot of decks like that, a lot of blue-white control decks with Revelation. I think this list is a good place to start, though. So I'm Zac Hill with the Tournament Center. Let's throw it back to Rich at the desk.